I really need this gig. I really need this gig. Should I price high and negotiate down, or should I start low so I don't miss it out? But I really, 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 really need this gig. Hey, this is Peng Joon here, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. Speaking gigs. So whether it's a corporate speaking gig, whether it is a workshop, whether it's a training, I'm going to talk about how do you position yourself, number one, to get these gigs, how much you charge so that you actually make it worthwhile for you and the company, and have them thank you for it, and have them wanting to engage you again and again and again. And finally, what should you be doing in order to fulfill it so that literally it's a win for all parties. And that's our goal here today. In fact, I literally just did a speaking corporate gig yesterday. It's something that I don't do often. It's not one of my favorites, but I like doing it once in a while. And today, I'm going to be taking you behind the scenes to how you can do that as well, to number one, get the gigs, fulfill them, and position yourself for high fees. Okay, so the first thing that we're gonna do, if you wanna be able to get the gig, number one, is how do you position yourself the right way and how much you charge. Okay, so if you follow me, one of the most very common things that usually happens is the company will have a brief and they will tell you what the event is about. Okay, so the first thing you've got to do is to think about what is the value that you're going to provide to this company. Okay, and that's why they're engaging you, right? Because in one way, shape, or form, you're either going to help them make more money, you're either going to help them become more effective, more efficient, you're either training your salespeople to be able to close more, you're either training your support people to become more effective, to reduce lead time. You could be purely based on entertainment. Now, whatever it is that you could be doing, okay, you got to think about, first of all, if I did this for the company, whether it's their execs, their support people, their sales people, what is the value and how much is it worth to them? So if it's 100 people, 5,000 people, if it's an entire team, is it just 50 people, 3 people? So you gotta think about, now if they did that and what it is that I'm showing them at that presentation, how much is it gonna be worth to them? If they applied, implemented, and executed it. Once the company members become more productive, more effective, whatever that means, think about that amount, right? Because the bigger that amount is, it means that the bigger it is worth to them, and that means also, it means that you'll be able to charge more. So one of the biggest mistakes for somebody starting out is people underpricing themselves, thinking that, you know what, I just want to get the gig first, and they price themselves really low. And when that happens, guess what happens? The team or the company that's thinking about engaging you, the first thing you think about is,
well, this person probably isn't that good, right? If not, why is this person this cheap?
Okay, so number one is don't shortchange yourself. Charge how much you're worth based on the value and the result that you provide. Okay, so the question is, how can you raise your value based on what you provide? Because when you can raise your value, why that company would pay you and engage you is purely based on the result you're able to help them generate. Okay, so next thing. Okay, so the next thing you want to do in order to understand how much you charge is, I'm going to show you like the brief without showing you some private and confidential details. But basically, the next thing you got to think about is, who are the people that's there, right? So is it just the sales people? Is it a broad audience? Is it the high-level C executives? So based on the audience, that's how you want to think about your topic and the proposal in order to deliver and fulfill this event. Now, so one of the things that I did, okay, is, in fact, if we were to come over here, for this event, I wore a suit. Okay, I've got a suit over here. Well, it's not really a suit, it's just a jacket. And the reason why I wore this is because some corporate companies, so let's talk about fulfillment now. Some corporate companies are very particular about the color that you wear, and that's normal. Especially if the color that you are wearing is a representation of a competitor. Okay, so literally in the brief that I got, it's white shirts are not advised. Well, why? Because white shirts apparently is one of their competition. So like for me, I wore this jacket. Now if you follow this channel, you'll know that this is something I do not wear often, but I guess there's a price for everything, right? So I wore a jacket over here because this is more of a representation of the brand of the company that I did it for yesterday. So that's number two. Like, you got to understand the company, what it is that they stand for. Be clear about who it is that's in the crowd so that you can cater to the people that you're talking to, right? So that's the second piece, right? Really understand who it is that you're talking to. Now I'm heading over to the slide over here because I'm here to show you like the importance of the delivery of this event. Okay, so the first piece is before the event. Remember, number one, notice who you're talking to. Position yourself the right way by making sure you understand the value that's worth to the company based on your topic. You want to charge more? Start thinking about providing more value that impacts the right people in the event. Now, the next thing that's going to happen is at the event itself and the structure. So over here, you'll see that there's an entire timetable of the event, right? And like this was my speaking slot. Now, this is crucial. Make sure that your presentation is not a minute longer or you don't end earlier. Now, this is crucial. Why? In fact, in terms of timing, it is because I can tell you that in some events, every minute, I can tell you like the really large events where there's like 1,000, 5,000 plus people. I have been on events where for every 1 minute that you end late, every minute that you end late, it's $1,000 fine. True story. Like in the world's largest stages, that's how they operate. For corporate companies, it's not that strict. But however, know that if there are a lot of keynotes back to back, especially if there's a lot of high profile speakers, let's just say a lot of high profile speakers, a lot of them are divas. So that means that whatever it is, if you are ending 5 minutes late, 10 minutes late, right? And every speaker does that, guess what? The speaker at the end of the day who's supposed to start at say 5 o'clock is now at 6:30. And this person is not going to be happy. Why? Because the organizer also is paying the speakers most of the time in terms of like their time, right? So make sure that if you had enough practice to make sure that you finish on the dot in terms of fulfillment. Now, when it comes to your pricing, right, which is the big question over here, how much should I price? Well, I always say have 2 price points, okay? So my ideal, and this is going to be a shocker to some of you, whenever I speak at these events, if the crowd is big or sufficient enough, I usually have an option that's free. And when I say big, at least 1,000 people, okay? And that's when the organizer will be like, wait a second, what, free? That's right. If you're able to make an offer, I can tell you nearly every single time, if I can make an offer, I would be able to make way more making an offer than to be able to receive a flat 5-figure fee speaking at an event. Okay, so sometimes corporate companies do not want that because that's not in line with their event objective, which is fine as well. And if that's the case, then that's when the second option would kick in, which is a flat fee or a mixture of both, right? So most of the time, if it's just a flat fee, I normally don't want to do it because it's not really worth my time. However, if I can have a hybrid, which is a minimum amount to cover my cost of my time, but also for me to do some sort of soft call to action so that I can either start getting the audience to understand what it is that I do through some sort of free offer, okay? So I would rather build a long-term sustainable list rather than a one-time flat fee, okay? So this is how you think about pricing. Try to think about creating an offer if that's possible, because in most cases, if you're able to present an offer, make an offer, whether it's paid or free, long-term, you will usually be more beneficial to you. Next one, okay? The next piece is how do you get your audience or the organizer to come back to you again and again and again and really provide massive value to the audience, okay? And this next thing here is I believe is the piece that truly separates great presenters from normal ones, okay? And this is basically coming from the angle of being an infotainer. Infotainer, that's right. So right now, if you think about this, the first segment is information, right? All these corporate companies, speaking gigs, ultimately, why are they looking for speakers? There's a lot of speakers who can deliver information who are experts. Okay, tons of them, experts, educators. Now, on the other hand, the second part here is if you truly want to be able to not just increase your price points, how much you're asking, but also deliver and have your audience thanking you and have the organizer wanting to come back for more, this is the second segment. You gotta be able to entertain. Now, why is that crucial? Here's why. If you think about it, you think about the people that get paid most in the world that we're living in today. Our entertainers are being paid way more than our educators. I mean, just think about how much teachers make versus musicians, versus performers, versus athletes, right? People would spend $1,000 for an amazing night out with concert tickets and get entertained in the club, right? But $1,000 on a course or a training, oh, that's a scam. Let's get rich quick, right? Most people are willing to pay $1,000 for an amazing night out, an epic one, an unforgettable, epic weekend. But a weekend of personal development? Are you kidding me, right? So what does this mean, right? You could be in a serious market, but information alone is not, number one, it's not going to be interesting. You're not going to get the audience's attention. And also at the same time, you're not going to be paid as much. Why? Because entertainers naturally, unfortunately, you could call it, maybe it's a sad truth, but entertainers will always get paid way more than educators. So what does this mean? It means that like the event that I talked in was in the market that is on insurance, right? So you could say, oh, insurance is a heavily regulated market, right? All financial markets are regulated. And just because it's a serious topic doesn't mean that you gotta be uptight and serious on camera, right? Where you gotta be there with both hands next to your side, right? And saying, welcome everybody, you know, today I'm gonna be talking about a very serious topic, which is on how to increase your value in the financial market, right? If I did that, it's gonna be boring, right? Nobody's paying attention. So one thing that you gotta think about is how can you make the topic, even though it's a serious topic, consumable so that your audience is being entertained, even if it's in a serious market, okay? Now, obviously, there are markets where if you're talking like, say about like something that's about life and death, like cancer or something, right? Now, obviously, you know, you gotta put this in the right context, but all I'm saying is that you gotta be able to think about how can I make that presentation enjoyable for my audience so that it's not painful to sit through it. And you know what I'm talking about. You've been through those presentations probably if you listen to a college professor, right? Those are the ones I'm talking about where, yeah, they're giving out maybe good information, but it's so painful to sit through, right? So make sure your audience is not going through that, right? And try to think about how can I add in some elements that's a pattern interrupt, where I'm engaging with them, right? Where I'm making them laugh. So engagement, right, is a part of entertainment. So for example, like this setup over here, right? You don't need to have a setup like this, but you might notice like in front of me, there are all these different monitors that's switched off right now. So when I did this event, if you want to be able to engage with your audience, right? Acknowledge them. So many people I see, right? Whether it's a live event, a virtual event, it's just a one-way communication. And if it's a one-way communication, which is kind of like this video right now, right? Because there's no way for me to really engage or ask you questions and acknowledge your replies, that's when it becomes boring. However, if you can shout out the comments and acknowledge the person that is commenting, guess what? That encourages more of the same behavior, right? And that's when it's entertaining, right? That's when it's engaging, this back and forth, right? If you're able to see their comments and you say, that's a great comment, right? And then answer some of those questions. So the same way how you would do it in a live event, right? In a live event, if it was just a one-way communication, which is kind of like what a college professor does, then becomes pretty boring as well. So once you're able to think about, so how do you entertain, right? So this would be, for example, engaging, right? Asking the right questions, acknowledging the replies. This could be through telling stories, right? Telling stories. And in fact, this entire event that I just did, I pretty much told stories the entire time, right? Now, why is this portion important? Is because if you're able to entertain them, that's when you get their initial attention. And that is when, with their attention, you'll be able to educate them. Okay? But you can only educate them if they're giving you their attention to begin with. Does that make sense? So it's kind of like you are leading with the hot dog, and then after that, you're serving them broccoli. Okay? But they're not going to have the broccoli if on the front door it was just, come in for a bowl of broccoli, right? You got to be able to get their attention first, right? Entertain them, engage them, tell stories. Could be jokes. It could be just your personality, right? Now the truth is, I don't find myself being a funny person. The truth is, I honestly think of myself being somewhat of a teacher and educator first, but I realized that I have to utilize more of these elements if I want to be able to get the attention before I can dish out information. Okay, so that's pretty much how I think about corporate gigs. And let's take a look at this slide that that they sent over, right? So without giving any personal information, right? So they've got their do's and don'ts, the dress code, right? What you can, what you can't do. In fact, you can see here, in fact, the dress code, like literally I am like the upper body of this conference dress code over here, right? So you gotta be very particular about what it is that you want, especially if it's like a big company and their branding and their positioning, and so like even colors makes a big deal for these people. Anyway, that's pretty much it. Let me know in the comments if speaking or doing these type of gigs is something that you want to do. And by the way, I understand this is a relatively kind of new topic for this channel over here. I wanted to test out this topic because this is literally something that I did yesterday. And I noticed that on Instagram, there were people asking me, questions about public speaking and corporate gigs. So let me know if you have any questions with regards to speaking and getting the gigs and positioning yourselves. And as always, if you enjoyed this video, do smash the like button. This helps the channel out. And subscribe to this channel. Switch on the notification bell if you want to be able to watch more videos just like this one.